Well, hello, everybody. It's good to see you. I have a bright new addition with me today. The one, the only, uh, the great Emily Smith. And she is here to join me to help me become even more articulate than I already am. And so, you know what time it is. It's time to get things started. It's time to light the lights. It's time to get things started. On the Joshua Show tonight.
And the Joshua Show it will be.
All right. Well, it is a pleasure to see you all here today, and I hope you all started on time so that you could enjoy the singing portion of the event. Today, Emily and I will be talking about autism intervention, which is a topic near and dear to our hearts. In addition to having this beautiful woman with me who knows a lot about autism intervention, we have tried to brighten up the light, so hopefully it is brighter and it does not appear that I am coming to you from a cave. As always, we are doing this with the goal of raising money for the Out of the Darkness Suicide Awareness Walk. These webinars are sponsored by Eli Smith, my son, and if you would like to make a donation, just click on the link that goes along with this video. We are running a promotion that Emily would like to explain.
All right, so we'll be doing these every Wednesday in the month of April for autism awareness. And since we are raising money for the Out of the Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk, we have one of our shirts. It's actually a hoodie, size large. Okay, backwards, gotta move backwards. Here we go. So this is the front. And then on the back, we have, you're kind of a walking helpful source because it's the Suicide Prevention Lifeline and the Crisis Text Line. So to enter the drawing to win this wonderful hoodie, just sometime in the month of April, you donate to the link that is on the Facebook Live, and any donation that you can do. And then at the end of April, we'll do a drawing for the winner of the hoodie. We also have an additional fundraiser component we've decided to add. Josh wrote this booklet.
That's honey.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Joshua Smith.
Dr. Joshua Smith wrote this novella on how
useful booklet.
Useful booklet. I didn't know booklet was part of the problem.
Useful booklet is fine. Just get the doctor in there.
The 10 Commandments for Raising Children with Autism, and it's something that he's been able to give to his clients, and has been very helpful. It's really concise, but it hits the main points. And I think, is it next week we're actually going to go over the 10 Commandments of raising a child with autism?
That is correct.
Okay.
We will be reviewing the 10 Commandments. I will not throw the 10 Commandments from Mount Sinai, but I will explain them.
So there's two choices. You can get this lovely hard copy printed at home, but very nice booklet, or we can even email it to you if you would rather have it in that form. So we are requesting a $10 donation to get this booklet, and if you want, you can go ahead and post that you want that and make your donation, and then we will make sure we get it to you by next Wednesday so that you can have it to follow along.
So that is all fun things that we have for you. If you have any questions, feel free to write out your questions. Emily will be helping me monitor the questions today so that we get to all of them. But let's talk about autism intervention, because that is where the rubber meets the road. You have found out that this person that you care about is autistic. Now, what do you do? So the first thing to understand is that it is important that individuals with autism receive intervention as early as possible. An individual with autism can make substantial progress between the time of the initial diagnosis, which at the earliest right now could be 18 months, until the child reaches 8 years of age. That's when they can really make a lot of progress. between the ages of 8 to 18, they can make some progress. And by the time that they reach the age of 18, what you see is what you get, and there's very limited progress that can be made. For, other people. I mean, if they were coming to me, they would make substantial progress. That being said, the other thing that people ask sometimes is, well, I don't want them to be too busy. And is there too much intervention? The secret is there is no such thing as too much intervention for a child with autism. Give them as much intervention as you have time for and that you can afford. Now, it is draining to have all the needs met so that the child can get to all their places they need to go to receive intervention. Emily Smith, have you ever found it draining to have the children get to their various appointments?
I mean, is the person who usually gets them to their various appointments?
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually had a really wise provider, one of either, I think it was a speech or OT therapist, she did say, obviously you want to get your child as much intervention as you can, as early as you can, but you do have to weigh the needs of the family and just the logistics. You have to decide what you can do. You need to decide what the max is you can do and do that. But we've backed off speech and OT and things like that over time as they've done better, and then increased it again just because of the needs of the family. I'm going to step out because my daughter needs me, so I will be back.
All right, lovely to see you. There is a famous former baseball player, Kurt Schilling, who has an autistic son. He has hired a driver to drive his son to his various appointments. That sounds lovely. Most of us do not have drivers to take our children to their various appointments. So we are namely limited in time and money as to what we can choose to do with our children with autism. So I want to talk about where we can get the biggest bang for our buck. And the first one is with Advanced Behavior Analysis, ABA. This has proven to be the most effective line of intervention. What we're looking for at ABA is analyzing the child's behavior and trying to overcome those behaviors. When you're doing this kind of intervention, you're only focusing on the things the child is doing. And you're going to start off with the things that are most dangerous and those that you want, and that will be the way you focus your efforts first. So if there is physical aggression, self-injurious behavior, or property destruction, that is where you're going to start, and we're going to get rid of that first, because there is these can cause the most problems for a patient. If you are having aggressive behaviors, that can negatively impact your ability to receive services elsewhere. So that's why you definitely want to get the aggression taken care of first. Also, it is much easier to take care of aggression when the kids are little. I have been beat up by autistic children in many, many different ways. There was a young man who used to work who was a patient at Our Lady of Peace while I worked there, and he was 6'2", over 200 pounds, and when he would get upset, he would say, "Fireworks tonight." That was, "Hi, Jessica," and when he would get upset, he would say, "Fireworks tonight." And so one time he got upset, he lifted me up in the air, and he did the Bane Batman maneuver on me and kind of hit my back against his knee and threw me to the ground. And that hurt. And he was 17 years old. Hard to change aggressive behavior in big 17-year-old boys. Easier to change it when they're 7 and you got weight on them. Hello, Roger Connolly. And So we want to stop that early. So I'll tell you one of my favorite stories about intervening. This happened with my son Jared. He now, as we all know with Jared likes his pizza and Jared likes his TV. And Jared used to hit his teachers. I know he seems so chill now, but he wasn't. And hello, Brian Tram. And so while he was he hit his teacher one day, and I was not happy with him. So we took away his TV privileges. And in addition to that, we bought a Papa John's pizza and ate it in front of him and made him eat a peanut butter sandwich with no pizza. And so very unhappy, but that is the kind of behavior intervention that we're talking about. When you're looking at behavioral interventions, we're looking at the consequences for behavior. So positive consequences for desired behavior, negative consequences for undesired behavior. Hey, Kate, what has been your favorite autism intervention?
Come on, sweetie.
So, she likes the behavior analysis when she gets treats. One of the things that we did with Caitlin, from a behavioral perspective, is when Caitlin was really young, she had a big problem with elopement. So she would just run away, and it would be very frustrating. So what I did is I did good old-fashioned classical conditioning. And one Saturday, I would clap my hands, give her a fruit snack. Clap my hands, give her a fruit snack. And then I slowly built it up to where I would tell her to come here, clap my hands, and give her a fruit snack. And then I would phase it down, giving her less and less fruit snacks per time I clap my hands, to the point where if I just clap my hands twice, Caitlin comes to me and I don't give her anything. And that is an excellent example of using classical conditioning to help. Behavior analysis can occur in the home, or it can occur in the office setting. I find it invaluable to do it in the home, because there you see how the child functions in their natural environment. I've also done this job in the home. You see what's important to the child, and you get a great idea for how the child functions. I remember one case, they were telling me that the child couldn't go to bed at night. I was like, oh, that's frustrating. I'll go there around bedtime. I go there at bedtime, and the child is eating a 5-pound bag of Starburst jelly beans, just handfuls at a time, 20 minutes before bedtime. I think I figured out what the problem was. It could be the handful of Starburst jelly beans right before bed. Well, that's just me. So let's see. There's only so much that can be done. Yes, definitely, Sister Hackett. The schools can do wonderful things. If, and this is the case for most school counties, between the ages of 18 months to 4 years, the child can go to a developmental preschool, and that can give the child a chance to interact with peers and get developmental progress in the school setting. But we definitely want to do everything we can to build behaviors at home as well. There is a program here in Indiana. Most states have a similar type program called First Steps. In First Steps, a child can receive physical therapy, speech therapy, and developmental therapy in the home setting to help them reach any developmental goals in which they're lagging behind. Due to the nature of their autism, there's probably going to be some developmental delays, and all of these interventions can be very helpful in helping the child meet their delays. One of the things that you will see, especially early on in an autism diagnosis, is toe walking. And this is where your physical therapist can be invaluable. Toe walking, while cute, extremely bad, not good for your feet, and can stretch your leg muscles in an unhealthy way. There was a young man that I knew at Our Lady of Peace who toe walked up until he was 18 years old. And thank you for the reminder. First Steps goes until they're 3 years old. Thank you, Sister Smith. So he was toe walking until he was 18 years old. And the problem with that stretched his muscles so severely that he had to have surgery where they purposely broke both of his legs to reattach his muscles correctly. And he was not a happy camper recovering from that surgery. A physical therapist can teach an autistic child to walk with their heel down, and they can do it early before it becomes a bad habit. My son Jared had this problem, and with the physical therapist was able to just get that taken care of very quickly. Let's see. Reading these notes, they offer First Steps in Kentucky and hands that goes. Okay, so my good, intelligent friend Monica tells me that they have First Steps in Kentucky and a program called Hands that lasts until they're 5, which is awesome. So even more intervention before 8, because intervention before the age of 8 is where the rubber meets the road. It's what we need. Okay. Speech therapy, essential. Whether or not you think your child has any type of developmental disorder, if there are abnormalities in speech, get the child involved in speech therapy. 25% of Americans receive speech therapy as a child. There is no stigma towards speech therapy. Speech therapists are amazing, and they can help you overcome silly things that you say in your pronouncing and enunciation. And many people who've had significant speech deficits are able to overcome those deficits through the intervention, through speech therapy intervention. Also, it can provide autistic individuals with as much ability to communicate as necessary, and could lead to them having the highest form of high functioning autism as opposed to severe functioning autism. We want to give them the best chance to communicate and to interact socially. That can only happen through effective speech. Occupational therapy covers everything else. Everything else that a person does is can be done through occupational therapy. And this can be a great way for the child to work on hygiene and independent living skills, which are necessary, because it is very frustrating when a 16-year-old still is having showering issues. One of the things that is really I have to spend a lot of time with in my own individual therapy is going over appropriate hygiene and deodorant use and going to the restroom. And I also feel like I deserve a special award because I've taught over 30 young men how to tie their shoes. Where's the Nobel Prize for that? Occupational therapists can help with all of that, organization, everything. Occupational therapists are amazing. Now let's talk about psychological intervention. Yeah. It's the best because it's what I do. All right. There's several different ways that psychology can help. First of all, they can focus on the individual and helping the child meet their functioning across all levels. Do you know what's crazy? Is that the place that I received my best results in working was in the prison, working with autistic prison inmates. And the reason why is because there is no HIPAA in prison. So I could talk to the teachers, I could talk to the therapist, I could talk to the guards, everybody. And I, as the psychologist, I was the quarterback of the team. And I set up the behavior plan, and everything ran through me, and I knew everything that inmate did every day. If somebody did not follow the behavior plan, they were out of a job. As an outpatient psychologist, I don't know what the OT is doing with my patient. I don't know what the PT is doing. It is very hard to get this information through HIPAA, and so it makes it harder to function as the quarterback. Okay, if you want to work with children but you aren't sure what capacity. So Emily Smith has talked about the benefit of becoming an OT or a speech therapist or a developmental therapist. I will tell you, you can make money in this area, especially as a speech therapist. You can work with any population you want to, and you can write your own check. They are in desperate need. So, good point, Emily. So, as the individual therapist, I am trying to get on board with ABA and all the other disciplines so that we're running a straight and smooth plan. Also trying to get on board with the school and finding out what's going on there. One of the biggest things that we're doing as in individual psychology is we're getting the parents on board. Parents have to follow the behavior plan. So early on in providing therapy, I always like to make sure that there is a Luke Skywalker, Yoda, Empire Strikes Back moment. So I will tell you what I mean. There was a patient that I was working with who he was extremely aggressive, and he would hurt his mother, he'd hurt his brother. He was real tough to be with. He would also beat up his brother and his mother while they were sleeping, which is also problematic. And I go in to meet the kid for the first time, and I'm talking to the mom, and I'm saying, "Hey, Mom, how can I help you? What do you need?" And she said, "Well, I would just love it if he would do one chore for me." And I'm like, "Well, what chore?" And she's like, "I'd love him to take the garbage out." It's like, easy enough. He's going to go take the garbage out. And she's like, "He'll never do it." And because I go into Master Yoda mode, I'm like, "Oh, yes, he's going to do it." And I go back in there and I say, "Hey, how's it going? I'm Dr. Josh. I'm going to need you to take the garbage out." And he tells me to go F myself, which was not the nicest thing I'd heard that day. And I said, "Okay, give you 5 minutes to finish up your game." And he tells, once again, F myself. So I take my phone. I love phones because they have the great little timer feature. And I say, "Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes. Set a timer for 5 minutes to watch him play his game." Timer goes off. I'm like, "Oh, timer goes off. It's time for you to go take the garbage out." Once again, go F myself. And so I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to have to give you 1 minute, and then I'm going to turn the game off." And once again, go F myself. And so I set the timer for 1 minute, and uh, and it goes off after a minute, and just these Xboxes are great. I just pull the cord, and he gets mad and he starts yelling, and he's like, "I can't believe you would do that to me." And that goes on for like 5 minutes, and he's like, "I just want to play my Xbox." And I'm like, "Okay, I just want you to take the garbage out." And he's like, "Fine." And he goes and he takes the garbage out, and he comes back in, and the mom is crying, and she says, "I can't believe it." So my master Yoda, I say, "That is why you fail." It's one of the things I try to do, because it is hard being a parent of an autistic child. It is very difficult. It is very difficult for me, and I'm a psychologist. It's very difficult for my wife, and she has her degree in elementary education. So I try to support the parents, and I try to give them a way, to provide them with solutions and confidence that it will work. They just need to buy into my behavior plan. And once we got that, we're good to go. One of the things that is also really sad, and I see this with my high-functioning autistic boys, is they know that they are different. And if we know anything about middle school and high school boys, is they do not want to be different. They want to be just like everybody else. And unfortunately, they know that they are different. And I've been seeing this client for 3 years, and he has been stoic the whole time. And he never cried, never emotional. And this last session I had with him, he just started crying, and he said, "Dr. Josh, this autism makes me different. Get it out of me. Get it out of me, please." And it's very hard not to cry when things like that happen. I will do family therapy when I work with autistic children. I will do therapy with anybody in the community. I have brought in ministers, I've brought in coaches, I've brought in who's ever involved with this kid. And because I need everybody on the same page. And I will tell you, I have heard some crazy things in therapy from family members and friends. And fine, get your crazy things out in therapy so I can tell you where you're wrong. And one of the most often that I hear is, "I'll just spank the autism out of them." I can't tell you how many times I have heard that. There is no spanking cure for autism. I do believe in discipline. I have spanked my children. It has happened. But you will not cure children through spanking. Yes, discipline, but no, it's not. It can't just be the only thing. So let's all get on the same page. All right. Then the one thing that we do at my practice, and I did my dissertation on this, is integrating autistic children into group therapy. There are so many autistic children who have received all these interventions from adults, and they talk like little adults. One of the things that I find fascinating is autistic kids are most comfortable with adults of their same gender. Adults, because adults are more predictable than children. Children are crazy. They're all over the place. Adults do the same things, feel the same way about things. You can predict an adult. A kid, they're angry one moment, they're sad the next. You never know what you're getting yourself into. And then they do just identify more with people who share their same gender. Now, the problem is, because they've been around these adults all the time, they talk like adults. So when they go around other children, they're going, "Well, hello, James. Would you like to join me for a constitutional? And afterwards, we could have a cup of tea." Yeah, no, you're not going to get friends like that. You got to talk like other kids. So group therapy is designed to help them learn how to interact with other children. You know, I did group today, and one of the things that we did is we went outside because in this horrible winter that just won't go away was one of the first nice spring days that we've had in a while. And I brought out a bunch of toys. I brought out basketball, bubbles, sidewalk chalk, frisbee, and football, and I put it all out there, and I said, go play. And it's amazing to me the number of children who do not know how to play. And I have to teach them how to play. Hi, Martha. So that's what we do in group. We learn how to interact with other people and how to have fun. Rebecca, we always have nice weather. Why don't you come here and check it out? Medication. Now, there's a lot of issues with medication. The biggest one is there is no specific medication targeted for autism spectrum disorder. So what we're giving kids is ADHD medicine, antipsychotic medicine, antidepressants, nothing specifically for autism. And this feels sketchy. The good news is they are currently conducting trials on a medication specifically designed for autism spectrum disorder with a potential release in 2020, which is super exciting. And I am so excited for that, and I will pay whatever they tell me to pay to obtain such medication. Until this time, we have to live in a world where there is not specific medication and we have to make choices. And so these are choices that you make in consult with the psychologist, with the psychiatrist, in your family, in determining what is best. One time, when Caitlin was having a really hard time, the psychiatrist was like, I'd like to put your daughter on Risperdal. And I just looked at the psychiatrist and I was like, that's not going to happen because that is a very big medication. All of these issues with medication need to be discussed well and prayed about and meditated about to consider what's best for you and your family. Now, I work with a lot of autistic children. Most autistic children that I work with have some sort of sleep disturbance, and I do not know a single autistic child that it does not take melatonin. Just because autistic people are notoriously bad sleepers. So melatonin, it is a natural chemical in the body. So it is one that you can give that is helpful. Most of the other sleep medications are addictive and are really not ideal to give to children other than a low dose of clonidine.
As prescribed by your doctor.
As prescribed by your doctor. Definitely do not get that from the guy on the street corner.
Not exactly what I meant.
You know, Joe's lovely. All right, so this gets us into the more fun therapies. Art therapy can be really beneficial, and for children who are very low on communication skills, art can be a wonderful way that they communicate. Anyone who knows Caitlin knows that she does a lot of her communication through art, and actually, she's very good. Now, as you've been watching this video, has there been anything that you wanted to add that I have not said?
Yeah.
Okay.
But not yet. I'll get to it.
I understand.
I have thoughts.
You look great.
Thank you.
Okay. Recreation therapy.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Did you guys notice how he's been thumping the pulpit like a preacher? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's one of the things I wanted to say.
Only on the good points.
He's raising his voice. He's getting into it. Getting into it.
Can I get a hallelujah? All right. So rec therapy. This gets into more of the. We talk about how to play, and then another thing. And I have a love and hate relationship with video games. Video games are great reinforcers. However, the children can get obsessed with the video games, and sometimes I really have to fight hard with those parents to be putting a restriction on those video games. And so now I have to tell you something that is going to be a bummer to hear, but research says that children should only have 2 hours of screen time a day and should not have more than 4 hours on weekends.
One of the challenges about kiddos on the spectrum is, all kids can get addicted to screen time. I mean, you see all sorts of memes on Facebook, so that must be true. That, they can all get addicted to screen time, just like you can get addicted to anything. But when you've got someone who perseverates or really focuses in and won't let go of something, it can really be that much more when you're talking about a kid on the spectrum. Like, you can tell Jared, he is almost constantly somewhere in the back of his mind, at least, thinking about when he next gets to watch TV. The boy loves electronics, and you give me an iPad, you give me your iPhone, and so that a little bit obsessive nature, that perseveration makes it even that much more when it's a kid on the spectrum.
Now, it's a love-hate relationship. I've gotten children to do a lot of work for 10 minutes of Minecraft, but you really have to manage it. So it's a thing. Music therapy can be really helpful. Music can also be very relaxing to children. There is some great intervention that has been done with horse therapy, and a great farm. We only went there once or twice, but it pairs autistic children with rescue horses and rescue dogs, and helps them learn increased empathy through taking care of those animals. And I know other people who've done that and have really enjoyed that. Surprisingly enough, Caitlin and other autistic people have benefited from chiropractic intervention. Now, can you tell them a little bit about that, what they've done with Caitlin?
Well, Caitlin, Caitlin's mostly nonverbal, and most of her verbal communication is related specifically to when she wants something. And so we're working on increasing her communication. We have an app on our iPad, but we have to read her body language a lot, just like you do with younger children who don't yet have the ability to describe to you what's going on verbally. And she just had seemed a little more out of sorts. She seemed a little more rigid in some of her movements. And so I just covered the bases. We went to the doctor, we did blood work, we did all kinds of things. But I did take her to the chiropractor, and she just, much as I did actually as a teenager, her hips were a little bit out of alignment. And so she's been
hips don't lie.
Align.
Hips. Shakira says hips don't lie. Okay.
Thank you.
Anytime.
And anyway, so she's just been getting adjustments just like anyone else would get. But, whether that's going to actually, in her case, help with any of her autism symptoms, I don't know. But everybody functions better when they feel better. So she's done really great with it. So if you're local, I'll tell you who my chiropractor is, because it works really well.
Some people do dietary intervention, and there has been some research into limited gluten, limited carbs for autistic children. I will tell you, as far as research goes, they say this doesn't hurt, but it doesn't really help the autism over all that much. But the kids look great, so that's wonderful.
For us, it's a lot of work, just, like for anyone who has to make a decision to limit a certain kind of food out of their diet. And so we've chosen to focus on things that studies show help, and that we want to get bang for our buck. If I'm going to put time and effort into do something to help my child, I want it to be something that will help my child. And
one of the things that also is very common with autistic children is because of the sensory disorder component of it, it's hard to get them to eat anything. I've seen it on all different kinds of things. I had this kid that I worked with that was 5 years old and over 100 pounds and ate a quarter pound of bacon every day for breakfast. And one of the things that we were working on is he didn't eat any fruits or vegetables. So I had to figure out a way to get him to eat fruits or vegetables. So what I did is I took a banana and I unpeeled it and I wrapped it in bacon. And I got him to eat the bacon banana. And then I slowly phased out the bacon until he was just eating bananas. And now he's eating fruits and vegetables all the time. But it took some work. There is some for people in Indiana or Kentucky, well, every state has an autism waiver. And these waivers in Kentucky, they're called the Michelle P. waiver. In Indiana, it's the creatively named waiver 451. These waivers provide for certain services like ABA, and they also provide for CLS or community living supports, which will help children, autistic children, who are mostly homebodies, get out of the house and do things. I used to do this job when I was going through graduate school, and you would take the kids to baseball games, movie theaters. Jared is receiving this service now, and he loves it. And then one of my favorite services, respite, which is basically babysitting, so that you can have time with your spouse. Emily and I have not gone on any cruises lately. And so having somebody to take care of the children, and you know that they're okay, makes everybody feel better. A question my mother asked last time was what grandparents can do to help. One of the biggest things is helping get the kids to their appointments. Helping facilitate those appointments. Helping with babysitting other children so that parents can go to IEP meetings and other treatment team meetings.
When Caitlin was diagnosed, I remember the social worker talked to us about these kinds of things. And of course, that was a pretty deer in the headlights day. And it didn't all sink in. But I remember them saying, do you have good support? I'm like, oh, yeah, we've got good support. And I remember the word respite probably got mentioned, but I didn't absorb it. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, we've got family around that loves us and is very supportive. We've got a great church family. I don't think we'll ever need any of that. Well, guess what? They get tired too. So as grateful as we are for our family and our friends stepping in, respite has been a fairly recent addition for us, and it helps a great deal to have some fresh energy. And respite's great because it certainly can be somebody you can say, this person I know wants to be our respite provider, and they train them and pay them to do that. So even if you think, oh no, I've got grandparents, I've got aunts and uncles, they get tired too. It's a challenging thing sometimes to figure out who can provide adequate care for a child, especially one that maybe does things that can be a little bit more dangerous or destructive. So we're big respite fans.
Now, William, I saw your question there asking about whether evaluation for high-functioning individuals should occur. I do think so. There was this one young lady that I met, and she went to a private Catholic school, and the teachers all knew her. The other kids knew her, and they just kind of did things without having them written down because they individualized the education without having an IEP plan or anything. And that was fine until the girl went to take her SAT. And she didn't have all the accommodations and other benefits that she normally had. And she got a 520 on her SAT. And then her mom's like, well, let's retake it and let's get accommodations. And then the SAT people said, sure, let's just see the IEP plan. And they're like, no IEP plan. And they're like, oh, well, let's just see the diagnosis of autism or high-functioning autism spectrum disorder. And they're like, oh, we don't have that either. And they're like, well, then we can't help you. Yeah. And so I had to do an evaluation and write specifically that they get recommendations for the SAT, which I did. And then when the girl retook it, she got a 1250. So it is good to have these things documented. Yeah. The only time where it's a problem is sometimes I'll get this guy who said he's 40 years old and they're like, and he wants a diagnosis of autism, and that can just be incredibly difficult without medical records, without parent reports. It's just
because you have to have evidence from their teenage years to diagnose, right?
I have to have evidence of developmental delay before the age of 3.
Oh, well, never mind.
Well, that's good, and that's going to be tough to come by from a 40-year-old.
Just a tip to new parents: write down somewhere their first steps, their first words, first time they crawl, just in case anything ever does happen. Because if you ever decide to do an evaluation, you will be asked those questions, I don't know, 73,000 times. Mm-hmm. So I was really grateful. That was one thing we did. We had a little my first year calendar, and we would write, when they had their milestones. And so I was able to flip that open and be like, well, she was 5 months in this many days. Not that I was always really good about keeping up with it, but at least I had a good starting point there.
We didn't talk much about school intervention. Schools can be invaluable, and we've had some excellent teachers work with our children, teachers that I am eternally grateful for, and are often thanked in my prayers at night. And then I don't think tonight I can get into my IEP meetings do and don'ts.
No, we'll put that on the to-do list.
Because I have a whole 30-minute rant about IEP meetings.
Yes, not tonight.
Yeah.
May I say something?
And unlike IEP meetings, I don't run over. Yes.
Yeah, she does. But so I was thinking about as I was listening when I was helping with Caitlin, I was listening. We have had to make some choices sometimes about which services to do and which services not to do. But just something that hasn't been brought up tonight is, depending on where you live in the area and the availability of these services vary a great deal. And right now in our area, ABA is pretty good. There's only a short wait list for ABA, and actually a new company just opened up that does ABA, so that will help with that too. But for example, right now in Southern Indiana, to get psychological services for individuals on the spectrum, it's just not going to happen without a wait list involved. We have a substantial list of people to call back when we have any openings. Our community mental health place decided last year that they were going to stop seeing all patients on the spectrum, and that was a significant chunk of people. And so far, we have not had new providers just appear. So what I'm getting at is, when you have the opportunity, say you get your child evaluated and they have a diagnosis, go ahead and start. Anything that there's an availability for, if you can get them to OT, into speech, into developmental therapy, into ABA, get them in with a therapist, anything you can do, go ahead and get them in. Because once you get in, you're in. And then you can evaluate as a family, I don't know if this therapy is what they need right now. Maybe we don't need the developmental therapy anymore. And I will say those therapists are very, at least all the ones we've ever dealt with, they're very good about telling you, yeah, they're doing pretty good. You might not need this for a while. But go ahead and get in. It's a lot easier to back out and say, you know what, we're running every day for 3 hours after school. We can't do quite this much, and we decided to back off of this or to cut this out. It's a lot easier to back out than it is sometimes to find the services. So hopefully your area has everything that you need, and it's not a problem, but that's just something you might take into consideration.
That's an excellent point.
Thank you.
You're a very wise person. You are correct. Mr. Waters, psychologists are being phased out due to pricing by Medicaid and other private insurances, which is unfortunate. But don't worry, I have the force. Now let me tell you about, because we're running out of time here. I know everybody has a limited attention span. I can listen to myself forever, but
yes, honey, yes.
The goal that Emily and I have is for eventually to have one place on an outpatient basis that has all these services together the speech, the OT, the PT, the psychiatry, the art therapy, the rec, music, all together ABA, so that we can meet in treatment teams and have all the advantages of inpatient, but on an outpatient basis, so we can all communicate and work together as one treatment team. And when we get that place, it's going to be a big building, and we're going to call it Caitlin's Place after my daughter. And that will be a good day. But we're going through the list of 1,000 dreams.
Short term, we want to get psychological services for every child in Southern Indiana on the spectrum who needs them. That's the short term goal.
Right. So we're making progress on our 1,000 dream mark. I want to make sure that everyone knows that they feel free to share this video, share it early and often. I had someone ask last time about transferring this video to YouTube, which I did for the last one. I put that link on my timeline. I will also be making a YouTube link for this one, so that if someone is not on Facebook, that they can access the video on YouTube. And then you have a reminder you want to make?
Yes, just reminders. And this video, we're doing it for Autism Awareness, the month of April. But we also have some goals that we have. If you have found this helpful, we're requesting that you go to the link on Josh's post and donate. Suicide awareness and prevention is a very tender, important topic for this family. And so we're hoping that those of you who find this helpful will at some point in the month of April make a little donation or a large donation. You feel free.
Dollar bill, y'all.
to our team that raises money every year for suicide prevention. If you do that, you will automatically enter yourself into the drawing for this hoodie. This is a size large, and it's really soft. I have one, and I love it. This is the front, and then on the back it has numbers. And my thought was, you never know, when you're walking down the street, who might be in crisis and see that and decide, yes, I can text that crisis helpline. I can make that phone call today. So by wearing the shirt, you also could be doing some good. So it's a win-win. Also, if you would like, next week, or do you think it'll be in 2 weeks?
I think it'll be next week.
Okay.
I feel emotionally prepared.
Next week, we're going to talk about what Josh calls his 10 commandments of raising children with autism. This is a little booklet that he's made that he uses in his practice and gives to his clients. Dr. Josh does.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry, I did it again. And so we're going to be discussing this next week. So if you would like to make a $10 donation, just comment on here that you did that, or you could send Dr. Josh a private message if you would feel more comfortable. And we will get this to you by next week. And just let us know if you want the hard copy booklet, or if you would just like us to email you the document that has this. So it's just a very, it's not wordy or lengthy. But his clients' parents have found this to be very helpful. Anyone who works with autism, children with autism, these are some great tips. So this is what we'll be discussing next week. So a $10 donation will get you one of these, either paper or electronic, per your request. And any donation will get you entered into the drawing for the hoodie, the size large hoodie.
Well, William, if you could PM me that friend of yours who is a psychiatrist friend, that would be great. And once again, this is the greatest show. This is where you want to be. We're here and we're going to teach you. This is where you want to be. Goodbye.